70% of young men today live with their parents. 1 in 3 men under 30 haven't had sex in the past year. Male suicide rates are 4 times higher than women's. Jordan Peterson says modern men are lost, purposeless, and psychologically castrated by a society that no longer needs traditional masculinity. Dr. Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist and professor emeritus at the University of Toronto, has been studying the crisis of modern masculinity for over 2 decades. What he's discovered should alarm every parent, educator, and policymaker in the Western world. We are witnessing the systematic collapse of male identity, purpose, and competence on a scale never before seen in human history. Young men are retreating from education, employment, relationships, and civic participation at unprecedented rates. They're being medicated for conditions that previous generations would have considered normal boyhood behavior. But this isn't just about individual men failing to launch, it's about the deliberate dismantling of masculine virtues that built civilization itself. Peterson argues that society has spent decades attacking everything associated with traditional masculinity while providing no positive vision for what men should become instead. The result: a generation of men who are more anxious, depressed, and directionless than any in recorded history. Men who lack the competence, confidence, and character that their grandfathers took for granted. Men who have been told they're toxic simply for being male. Today, I'm going to share Peterson's most profound insights about what's happened to modern men, why it's dangerous for society, and most importantly, his roadmap for reclaiming authentic masculine purpose in a world that seems determined to destroy it. Are you ready to understand why Peterson calls this the most serious crisis facing Western civilization? The statistical catastrophe. The numbers don't lie before we explore Peterson's analysis of why men are failing. You need to understand the shocking scope of male dysfunction in modern society. These aren't opinion pieces or anecdotal observations. These are hard data points that reveal a civilization-level crisis. Educational collapse, achievement gap. For the first time in history, women significantly outperform men academically at every level. Women earn 60% of bachelor's degrees, 63% of master's degrees, and 56% of doctoral degrees. Reading crisis. Boys are 50% more likely to repeat a grade and twice as likely to be diagnosed with learning disabilities. The average 12th grade boy reads at the same level as the average 8th grade girl. College enrollment collapse. Male college enrollment has been declining for 2 decades. Many universities now struggle to maintain gender balance, with some schools being 70% female. Behavioral problems. Boys are 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD and are disproportionately medicated for normal masculine behaviors like competitiveness, risk-taking, and physical activity. Peterson argues that the educational system has been systematically redesigned to favor female learning styles while pathologizing male ones. Schools have eliminated recess, banned rough play, and punished boys for being naturally more active and competitive than girls. Economic displacement. Labor force participation. Male labor force participation has been declining for 70 years. In 1950, 97% of men aged 25 to 54 were employed. Today, only 88% are, representing millions of men who have simply given up looking for work. Income stagnation. Real wages for men without college degrees have been declining for decades, while women's wages have steadily increased. Career concentration. Men are increasingly concentrated in declining industries, manufacturing, construction, while women dominate growing sectors: healthcare, education, professional services, basement dwellers. 35% of men aged 18 to 34 live with their parents, compared to 29% of women. This represents a dramatic reversal from previous generations where men typically left home earlier than women. Peterson notes that for the first time in human history, a significant percentage of young men are economically dependent on others. Well into their 20s and 30s, relationship and sexual dysfunctionless men, 28% of men under 30 report having no sexual partners in the past year, compared to 18% of women. This gap has tripled since 2008. Marriage collapse. Marriage rates have plummeted, with men increasingly opting out of long-term commitments. 50% of adults are single, with men comprising the majority of long-term singles. Dating app dystopia. On dating apps, the top 10% of men receive 60% of female attention, leaving the majority of men with virtually no romantic prospects. Porn addiction. 90% of men have been exposed to pornography by age 18, with many developing addictions that interfere with real relationships. Peterson argues that sexual liberation and feminism, while benefiting some women, have created a brutal sexual marketplace where most men are considered undesirable. Mental health crisis. Suicide epidemic. Men commit suicide at 3 to 4 times the rate of women across all age groups. This gap has been widening for decades. Depression and anxiety. While women are more likely to be diagnosed with depression, men's depression often goes unrecognized because it manifests as anger, substance abuse, or withdrawal rather than sadness. Substance abuse. Men are twice as likely to develop alcohol and drug addictions. Deaths of despair. Suicide, overdose, alcohol-related deaths disproportionately affect men. Social isolation. Men report having fewer close friends than women and are less likely to seek help for mental health problems. Peterson emphasizes that these aren't individual failings, but symptoms of a society that has systematically undermined masculine identity and purpose. The systematic attack on masculine tightness argues that the crisis of modern men isn't accidental. It's the result of deliberate cultural and institutional changes that have pathologized masculine traits while providing no positive vision for male identity. The toxic masculinity narrative. Pathology. Male nature, traditional masculine traits, competitiveness, aggression, dominance, risk-taking, stoicism have been reframed as toxic rather than natural expressions of male psychology that need to be channeled constructively. Historical revisionism. Men's historical contributions to civilization building, protecting, providing, innovating, have been minimized or reframed as oppression rather than sacrifice and achievement. Male-only spaces eliminated. Traditional male institutions, men's clubs, fraternal organizations, male sports, have been forced to include women or have been labeled discriminatory. Father figure destruction. The cultural importance of fathers has been systematically undermined, with single motherhood celebrated and male authority questioned. Peterson argues that this narrative ignores the essential role that masculine energy has played in human progress and survival. Educational feminization. Anti-male bias. Studies show that teachers give boys lower grades than girls for identical work, and boys are more likely to be punished for the same behaviors that are tolerated in girls. Elimination of competition. Schools have reduced or eliminated competitive activities, ranking systems, and individual achievement recognition, all of which naturally motivate boys. Sedentary learning. The elimination of physical activity, hands-on learning, and kinesthetic education has made school environments hostile to typical male learning styles. Zero-tolerance policies. Normal boyhood behaviors like rough play, mock fighting, and physical competition have been criminalized through zero tolerance policies. Peterson notes that boys naturally learn through movement, competition, and hierarchy, but schools have been redesigned around collaborative, sedentary, verbal learning styles that favor girls. Economic obsolescence. Physical labor decline. The economy has shifted from manufacturing and physical labor where men had natural advantages to service and knowledge work where gender differences are less relevant or favor women. Credential inflation. Many jobs that previously required on-the-job training now require college degrees, disadvantaging men who are less likely to complete higher education. Diversity hiring. Affirmative action policies in education and employment explicitly favor women and minorities over white and Asian men. Automation displacement. Jobs in traditionally male industries are being automated faster than jobs in female-dominated sectors like healthcare and education. Peterson argues that society has failed to help men adapt to economic changes while actively discriminating against them in emerging sectors. Cultural emasculation. Media representation. Men in media are increasingly portrayed as incompetent, evil, or comic relief, while women are shown as strong, capable, and morally superior. Feminist ideology. Radical feminist ideology has framed all male behavior through the lens of patriarchal oppression, making normal masculine expressions seem inherently problematic. Sensitivity training. Boys and men are subjected to sensitivity training that teaches them their natural impulses are wrong and potentially harmful. Role model absence. Traditional male role models, warriors, builders, providers, leaders, have been replaced with feminized ideals that feel foreign to male psychology. Peterson emphasizes that while some aspects of traditional masculinity needed refinement, the complete rejection of masculine virtues has left men without positive identity models. The psychological consequences of male displacement. Peter's clinical work reveals that the attack on masculinity has created specific psychological patterns that are devastating young men's mental health and life prospects. Learned helplessness and passivity. Initiative suppression. Boys learn early that taking initiative, being assertive, or showing leadership often results in punishment or criticism. They become passive and wait for permission instead of taking action. Risk aversion. Natural male risk-taking is pathologized, creating men who are afraid to take the risks necessary for achievement, relationship success, or personal growth. Conflict avoidance. Boys are taught that all conflict is harmful, leaving them unable to handle disagreement, negotiate, or stand up for themselves as adults. Dependency development. Extended childhood and constant supervision create men who struggle with independence and decision-making. Peterson observes that many young men have internalized the message that their natural impulses are wrong, leading to chronic self-doubt and paralysis. Identity confusion and role ambiguity. Defined masculinity. Without clear models of positive masculinity, young men don't know what it means to be a man or how to transition from boyhood to manhood. Feminine expectation. Men are expected to adopt feminine traits, emotional expressiveness, collaboration, sensitivity, while abandoning masculine ones, creating internal conflict and confusion. Performance pressure. Men face contradictory expectations. Be sensitive but strong, collaborative but competitive, equal but protective, authentic. Expression suppression. Men learn to hide their true thoughts, feelings, and desires because authentic masculine expression is often criticized or punished. Peterson notes that this identity confusion leaves men vulnerable to depression, anxiety, and various forms of addiction as they struggle to find authentic ways to express their masculinity. Motivation and purpose. Achievement devaluation. When competition and individual achievement are discouraged, many men lose motivation to excel or improve themselves. Provider role elimination. As women become economically independent and traditional provider roles become obsolete, many men lose their sense of purpose and necessity. Competence undermining. Constant criticism and second-guessing erodes male confidence in their abilities and judgment. Future orientation loss. Without clear life goals or social expectations, many young men live day-to-day without long-term planning or ambition. Peterson argues that men derive meaning from competence, achievement, and responsibility. But modern society has made these traditional sources of meaning either unavailable or problematic. The retreat to digital masculinityphus with a hostile real world. Many men have retreated into digital spaces where they can express masculine traits without social punishment. However, Peterson warns that this retreat often becomes a destructive escape rather than healthy development. Video game addiction. Simulation. Video games provide the competition, achievement, and skill development that men crave but can't find in real life. However, these are simulated rather than real accomplishments. Risk-free heroism games allow men to be warriors, leaders, and heroes without real-world consequences or responsibilities. Social connection substitute. Online gaming provides male bonding and teamwork experiences that are difficult to find in feminized real-world environments. Instant gratification. Games provide immediate feedback and rewards that contrast sharply with the delayed gratification required for real-world success. Peterson notes that while gaming isn't inherently harmful, it becomes problematic when it replaces rather than supplements real-world achievement and relationship building. Pornography and sexual dysfunction. Artificial intimacy. Pornography provides sexual satisfaction without the social skills, emotional vulnerability, or commitment required for real relationships. Unrealistic expectations. Porn creates unrealistic expectations about sex and women's bodies that interfere with real intimate relationships. Dopamine disruption. Like other addictions, pornography dysregulates the brain's reward system, making real relationships feel less rewarding. Social skill atrophy. Men who rely on pornography often fail to develop the social and emotional skills necessary for healthy relationships. Peterson argues that pornography is particularly destructive because it short-circuits the male drive that traditionally motivated men to develop themselves to attract and keep a mate. Social media and virtual validation. Curated masculinity. Social media allows men to present idealized versions of themselves without backing up the image with real competence or achievement. Passive consumption instead of creating or achieving. Many men spend hours consuming other people's content and achievements. Comparison trap. Social media exposes men to the success and lifestyle of others, often creating feelings of inadequacy and failure. Echo chamber creation. Men retreat into online communities that validate their grievances without challenging them to improve. Peterson warns that digital retreat, while understandable, often becomes a trap that prevents men from developing real-world competence and relationships. Peterson's blueprint for masculine recovery. After identifying the scope and causes of the modern male crisis, Peterson developed a comprehensive program for helping men reclaim authentic masculinity and purpose in the modern world. Phase 1. Rejecting victim identity. First step in masculine recovery is refusing to accept victim status, even when society has genuinely failed men. Personal responsibility. Take complete responsibility for your current situation, regardless of societal factors beyond your control. You can't change society, but you can change yourself. Grievance abandonment. Stop focusing on how unfair society is to men and start focusing on what you can do to improve your own life and capabilities. Agency development. Begin making decisions and taking actions based on your own judgment rather than seeking permission or validation from others. Victim narrative rejection. Refuse to define yourself by what's been done to you or what's wrong with society. Define yourself by what you're building and becoming. Peterson emphasizes that while men have legitimate grievances against modern society, remaining in victim identity prevents the action and growth necessary for recovery. Phase 2. Competence. Building men derive self-worth and social status from competence. The key to masculine recovery is systematically developing real skills and capabilities. Physical competence. Develop physical strength, fitness, and capability. Join a gym, learn martial arts, practice sports, or engage in physical labor. Your body is the foundation of your confidence. Professional competence. Become genuinely skilled at something valuable. Master a trade, develop expertise, build a business, or excel in your career. Competence creates options and respect. Social competence. Learn to interact effectively with others. Practice conversation, develop leadership skills, and learn to handle conflict constructively. Emotional competence. Develop emotional regulation, resilience, and the ability to handle stress and setbacks without breaking down. Practical competence. Learn basic life skills: cooking, cleaning, finances, home maintenance, car repair. Become someone who can handle practical challenges independently. Peterson argues that competence is the foundation of legitimate confidence and that without real capabilities, men remain dependent and insecure. Phase 3. Responsibility Adoption Traditional. Masculinity has always been defined by responsibility. Men need to find meaningful responsibilities that provide purpose and social value, self-responsibility. Take complete charge of your physical health, mental well-being, financial situation, and personal development. Family responsibility. If you have children, be an excellent father. If you have a partner, be a supportive and protective partner. If you have aging parents, care for them. Community responsibility. Contribute to your community through volunteer work, civic participation, or local leadership. Professional responsibility. Excel in your work and take on increasing levels of responsibility and leadership. Mentorship responsibility. Help younger men avoid the pitfalls you've experienced. Share knowledge, provide guidance, and model positive masculinity. Peterson notes that responsibility is what transforms boys into men and gives life meaning beyond personal pleasure or comfort. Phase 4. Healthy relationships. Men need both male friendships and intimate relationships with women to fully express their masculinity and achieve psychological health. Male friendship development. Build genuine friendships with other men based on shared activities, mutual respect, and honest communication. Men need male bonds to understand and express their masculinity. Romantic relationship skills. Learn to attract and maintain healthy relationships with women. This requires developing emotional intelligence, communication skills, and the ability to be both strong and vulnerable. Conflict resolution. Learn to handle disagreement and conflict constructively in all relationships. Avoiding conflict doesn't eliminate it, it just makes you weak and resentful. Boundary setting. Establish and maintain healthy boundaries in all relationships. Know what you will and won't tolerate and communicate these limits clearly. Leadership development. Practice taking initiative and providing direction in relationships without being controlling or domineering. Peterson emphasizes that healthy relationships require men to be both competent and caring, strong and sensitive. Phase 5. Purpose and legacy. Final phase of masculine recovery involves finding transcendent purpose that extends beyond personal success or happiness. Value clarification. Identify what you truly believe is important and worth sacrificing for. What principles are you willing to defend? What causes deserve your energy? Legacy vision. Consider what you want to leave behind when you're gone. How do you want to be remembered? What impact do you want to have on the world? Meaningful work. Align your career with your values and sense of purpose. Work should be more than just earning money. It should contribute to something you believe in. Generative impact. Focus on creating, building, and contributing rather than just consuming or accumulating. What are you adding to the world? Spiritual development. Develop a connection to something larger than yourself, whether through religion, philosophy, nature, or service to others. Peterson argues that men without transcendent purpose remain stuck in adolescent pursuits of pleasure and status rather than developing into mature, contributing members of society. The importance of male role models. One of Peterson's most important insights is that men cannot develop authentic masculinity in isolation. They need exposure to positive male role models who demonstrate healthy masculine traits. Father figure necessity. Identity formation. Boys need strong father figures to understand what it means to be a man. Without this, they often remain psychologically adolescent or adopt distorted views of masculinity. Skill transmission. Traditionally, fathers taught sons practical skills, work ethics, and how to navigate the male world. This transmission has been disrupted. Protection and guidance. Fathers provide protection and guidance that allows boys to take appropriate risks and develop confidence safely. Emotional regulation modeling. Boys learn emotional regulation by watching how men handle stress, disappointment, In Conflict, Peterson emphasizes that the absence of fathers or father figures leaves boys vulnerable to developing either passive or aggressive extremes rather than balanced masculinity. Mentor relationships, skill development. Mentors provide guidance in developing competence in specific areas, trades, professions, sports, or life skills. Reality testing. Older men can provide honest feedback about a young man's capabilities and areas for improvement without the emotional complications of family relationships. Network access. Mentors can introduce young men to opportunities, connections, and communities that support masculine development. Wisdom transmission. Experienced men can share lessons learned through decades of success and failure, helping younger men avoid common pitfalls. Peterson advocates for formal and informal mentorship programs that connect young men with successful older men who can guide their development. Male community participation. Brotherhood bonds. Men need spaces where they can express competitive, aggressive, and adventurous impulses in constructive ways with other men. Shared challenges, group challenges, sports teams, military service, work crews, adventure groups create bonds and develop masculine virtues. Mutual accountability. Other men can provide accountability and challenge that helps individuals maintain standards and continue growing. Support networks. Male communities provide emotional support during difficult times without requiring vulnerability that might feel emasculating. Peterson argues that the elimination of male-only spaces has deprived men of essential developmental experiences and ongoing support systems. Case studies. Masculine recovery in action. Let me share 3 detailed examples of how Peterson's masculine recovery system transforms lives. Case study 1. Marcus. From basement dweller to business owner, Marcus was a 26-year-old man living in his parents' basement, working part-time at a video game store and spending 8 hours daily gaming. He had never had a serious relationship and felt completely lost and purposeless. The problem, Marcus had internalized the message that ambition and competitiveness were toxic. He avoided challenges, lived for immediate pleasure, and had no long-term goals or responsibilities. Competence building. Marcus started with physical fitness, joining a gym and learning basic strength training. The immediate physical improvements gave him confidence to tackle other areas. Skill development. Marcus used his knowledge of gaming to start a YouTube channel, then learned video, editing, marketing, and business skills. He discovered he had entrepreneurial abilities. Responsibility adoption. Marcus moved out of his parents' house, took financial responsibility for his life, and began mentoring younger gamers about balancing gaming with real-world development. Relationship development. As Marcus became more confident and capable, he developed social skills and eventually found a romantic partner who respected his growth and ambition. Purpose discovery. Marcus built a successful business helping young men balance gaming with personal development, finding purpose and preventing others from the isolation he experienced. Result: within 3 years, Marcus owned a profitable online business, had a serious relationship, and had become a mentor to other young men struggling with similar issues. Case study 2. David. From angry activist to community leader, David was a 30-year-old man who spent most of his time on men's rights forums complaining about feminism and society's treatment of men. He was bitter, angry, and stuck in victim identity. The problem? David was focused entirely on grievances against society rather than personal development. His anger and resentment made him unattractive to potential partners and employers. Mindset shift. David learned to channel his understanding of men's issues into constructive action rather than just complaint and resentment. Competence building. David used his analytical skills to start a blog about men's issues that focused on solutions rather than just problems, developing writing and communication skills. Community engagement. Instead of just complaining online, David started organizing local men's groups focused on personal development and mutual support. Professional development. David leveraged his communication skills and understanding of social issues to build a career in organizational development and training. Leadership role. David became a respected voice in men's issues, advocating for boys' education and male mental health while maintaining credibility with both men and women. Result: David transformed from an angry victim into a respected community leader who helps men while working constructively with women and institutions to address legitimate gender issues. Case Study 3. James. From nice guy to confident leader, James was a 28-year-old man who had been taught that masculinity was toxic. He was excessively passive, couldn't attract women, and was constantly taken advantage of in professional and personal relationships. The problem: James had completely suppressed his masculine traits, believing they were harmful. He was unable to be assertive, set boundaries, or pursue his own interests. Masculine recovery. James learned to distinguish between toxic and healthy masculinity, discovering that traits like assertiveness, leadership, and protective instincts could be positive. Boundary development. James practiced setting and maintaining boundaries in all relationships, learning to say no and stand up for himself respectfully but firmly. Leadership training. James took on leadership roles in volunteer organizations, gradually building confidence in his ability to direct and guide others. Social skills. James learned to be more direct in communication, to express his opinions confidently, and to pursue romantic interests more assertively. Professional growth. James used his newfound assertiveness to negotiate better working conditions, take on challenging projects, and advance in his career. Result: James became a confident leader who attracted respect from both men and women, found a healthy romantic relationship, and achieved professional success while maintaining his core values of kindness and integrity. The societal implications of male recovery. Peterson argues that the recovery of healthy masculinity isn't just important for individual men, it's essential for the health of society as a whole. Economic productivity, innovation, and risk-taking. Masculine traits like competitiveness, risk-taking, and systematic thinking drive innovation and economic growth. Physical labor. Despite technological advances, society still needs men willing and able to do dangerous, difficult physical work. Entrepreneurship. Men start businesses at higher rates than women and are more likely to take the risks necessary. For economic expansion, leadership, and direction, organizations and communities need people willing to take responsibility, make difficult decisions, and provide direction during crises. Peterson notes that societies with weak, passive men tend to stagnate economically and become vulnerable to competition from societies with stronger masculine cultures. Social stability. Crime reduction. Young men without purpose or positive role models are disproportionately likely to engage in criminal behavior. Healthy masculine development reduces crime rates. Family formation. Stable families require men who are capable of commitment, responsibility, and protection. Weak men don't marry or become unreliable fathers. Community leadership. Local communities need men willing to take on leadership roles in civic organizations, churches, and volunteer groups. Emergency response. During crises, natural disasters, wars, social upheaval, societies depend on men willing to take physical risks to protect others. Peterson argues that societies that systematically weaken their men become vulnerable to internal collapse and external threats. Cultural transmission. Value preservation. Traditional masculine virtues like honor, duty, courage, and responsibility are essential for preserving cultural values across generations. Skill transmission. Many practical skills, work ethics, and forms of knowledge are traditionally passed from father to son and require masculine role models. Protection function. Cultures need men willing to defend them against external threats. And internal decay. Innovation drive. The masculine drive for achievement and status has historically driven technological and cultural advancement. Peterson emphasizes that while gender roles can evolve, eliminating positive masculinity entirely threatens the foundation of civilization itself. Conclusion: the choice facing modern men, the crisis of modern masculinity, represents one of the most serious challenges facing Western civilization. Millions of young men are lost, purposeless, and psychologically damaged by a society that has systematically attacked their nature while providing no positive alternative. Peterson's research reveals that this isn't just about individual men failing to adapt, it's about the deliberate destruction of masculine virtues that built and maintained civilization for thousands of years. The consequences extend far beyond unhappy individuals to include economic stagnation, social instability, and cultural decline, but the situation isn't hopeless. Peterson's recovery program proves that men can reclaim authentic masculinity and purpose even in a hostile cultural environment. The key is rejecting victim identity, building real competence, accepting responsibility, developing healthy relationships, and finding transcendent purpose. However, this recovery requires individual courage and commitment. Society isn't going to help men recover. If anything, it will continue to discourage masculine development. Men must take responsibility for their own recovery and for supporting other men in their journey. The choice facing every man today is simple but profound. Will you remain lost, passive, and dependent, or will you do the difficult work of becoming a competent, responsible, purposeful man? The future of civilization may depend on how men answer this question. Peterson's blueprint provides the roadmap, but only individual men can choose to walk the path. Your ancestors built the world through courage, competence, and sacrifice. Your descendants are counting on you to continue that legacy. What kind of man will you choose to become?